me and my wife and go visit this channel right there, and they'll be like, oh, because you'll be holding your guns. They'll be like, I like this guy. I want to learn more
Oh
about
no,
him.
right now I'm getting a lot of hate for all that crap right now. Like people are saying I'm stupid.
So, hello everybody. Welcome to our YouTube/podcast with the future husband/husband, depending on when you see this video. um, yeah. So I'm Desiree. This is Samuel. In case y'all don't know, we're we're the Burketts.
Mhm.
We're talking about some of the topics that you guys have shown some interest in that you'd like to hear from a man's perspective. So Samuel, you were
Mm.
talking to me about how and I remember this when we were dating, but I know that you were talking about how one of the things that you were drawn to was modesty in dating, and yet on for me personally, you soon discovered that I'm not a prude, that I have my own excitement behind all the modesty, which is ideal, I think, for most guys. But I was wondering, what
I
are your
think
thoughts?
everyone is.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, like on attraction and modesty, because I don't think women hear that enough, that guys are attracted to women who show some modesty and restraint.
Mm.
Yes. And
Well,
they're
whether men are aware of it or not, almost any man would be attracted to a woman who is exclusive. So if he can get someone who meets certain criteria, like she is attractive to him and all these other things, but on top of that, she's the only one, like she is the only one that he has access to. So, or he's the only one that she has access to. Like no one else gets to touch her or do anything. And it's part of that patriarchy stuff that people hear about where they're like, my man can't tell me what to do and control me and all. And I'm like, well, yeah, but it goes both ways. Like you're exclusive to him, he's exclusive to you, and you both hold each other to that.
yeah,
And that can show as jealousy, but I think that's more perspective than anything.
yeah.
But yeah, but the modesty thing, I think that like for me, modesty is one, it's a sign of self-control, like you're disciplined and you have something in your mind as a goal or a value that you hold above what you want. Because most people want to get married or they want to have a family or whatever. But to get there, you can get there a lot of different ways. You can
Mhm.
get there
It's important.
on prom night. You can get there a one night stand on Tinder or at a bar in an alley. Like you can get there any different kind of way on vacation. It doesn't matter. But to not compromise, because a lot of people nowadays use that word a lot, like, oh, I shouldn't have to compromise and da da da.
Mhm.
Well, I know what most people mean by that in general, but I know like for you and I, like that would mean like um to not compromise would be like our faith in God and what we want for the future and things like that. Those long-term delayed gratification things, which is what I was also going to add is delayed gratification is a thing. Neurologically, psychologically, like people could be like, well, I don't believe that. And I'm like, well, there's like too much research that backs it up.
Oh yeah,
Um,
economic.
just
I
just
know.
Google delayed gratification. It's
Fun.
been studied for, I don't know, like at least like half a century, if
Mhm.
not longer. But again, I think because you and I have um I mean basically like waited at least for marriage. It's like uh more than just marriage. Like you like haven't even really dated that much like you have like, but I mean I've dated a little bit more, um but at the same time like I can only like on like these fingers like probably remember slash name, like it hasn't been that many like that I've tried to date or I've even gone out on dates with. And as time went on, like I just did it less. I think you probably had the same experience where like,
Well, in the beginning, I started off slow, like in my 20s.
oh, okay, okay. For
I
me, it was the
dated.
opposite.
Oh,
Like
really?
I started off incredibly slow. Um, and then like as time went on, like I picked up steam, so to speak, and I was much more willing to go on a date back before I met you. To I mean, but I grew this mindset of like, well, why not give someone a chance? You know, doesn't matter who they are. Like I'll give almost anyone a chance.
I think that's
Um,
a normal phase that you go through. You get
mhm,
jaded. I just waited so long to start because I was
mhm.
waiting to meet people organically. I didn't meet anyone in high school or college. I mean,
Yeah,
so I dated two people in my 20s. And then in my 30s is when I started like, I need experience. Like, this is crazy. Like, I need this. Even people that I may not, dating for marriage was something they taught in the
mhm.
church, which makes sense.
Right.
But also, because of the times we live in, if you're dating just for marriage, a lot of people are going to pass you up, because they don't want marriage.
Yeah. Well, exactly. I couldn't even find a person who wanted even close to the same things that I wanted.
Yeah.
Like just to get married and have kids. That right now is so rare. Just by happenstance. Like they're out there. It's not as common as it used to be. And that's the thing that I like. Like I remember my mother of all people would be like, "Oh, you're gonna like just have a little faith. Like you're gonna find someone." And I
Mhm.
would look at her and be like, tell me if you know any single women or you've come across them as a teacher, like where girls are like looking for a man to settle down with and have kids and be a stay-at-home mom and all that stuff. And she's like, I can't think of one. I'm like, exactly. So it's not, and we were in the South at the time. So it's like
Right.
Southern, even in the South where you have Southern qualities and morals and
Yeah.
ambitions and stuff like that, a lot of that's going away. It's going to the wayside. Now I think you'll find the most guns, the most Christians in the South. Like a lot of that stuff's still there and will never go away, as opposed to other parts of the United States. But yeah, getting back to withholding and waiting and everything. Um, Ironically, so this is something actually I might as well ask you like for the first time while we're talking on here. But like for me, like especially like when I was like looking around at the time when I met you, just seeing what was out there in Georgia. Um my attitude when we met was very like no expectations, no like just like I'm literally just like, hi, nice to meet you. Like not like I'm desperate or I feel like I need to meet someone because my biological clock's ticking. I'm getting older. I'm not getting younger, kind of thing. Would and so my question is to saying that, would you say that as you've gotten older, you got more settled in the mindset of I'm comfortable with being alone, or was it more this anxiety of like I have to find someone before I die, like because I don't want to like live the rest of my life alone, kind of thing?
Yeah,
Um,
that's a great question. I think I experienced that in my 30s. So, I'm anyone who's been following me for a while and that's heard my singleness story. I did have like I don't know what you want to call it. I had a crisis when I turned 30. It was a slow fade, but I just think that I was so blown away. Like I could no longer wrap my head around like why of all people, not that I'm just like, ooh, Jesus Christ, but I'm just saying for someone who's been waiting as long as I have and was trying to do things God's way, I think that me putting a timestamp on when I thought God would answer my prayers just caused me to kind of lose it in my 30s because I that was the nightmare for me, being 30, still single, still waiting, talking about, I'm doing it God's way. And there's teenagers that were looking up to me and are probably now like, I don't want to be anything like that. So do I want it? I mean, these were all these things I was thinking. I mean, just being real, like it was looking like, why would I want to do that? I even had people say, well, I'll wait till I'm 35. But after that, I guess they were just saying they're going to date like everybody else. But After that, though, I had went through this whole transformation, I guess you can call it, from like 33 to 35. And after that, yeah, I just had to make peace with it. My pastor helped me a lot. My whole church, actually, just people that helped me just find peace with it, and everything. Because I didn't want to, even when I was feeling at moments of loneliness and I would date guys and I just knew this guy's not right for me, or there was just red flags. As much as I wanted it, I had to walk away from it, and that was painful, because you don't know when you're gonna. You just want to meet your person, It's just like, so I get it. Like when I counsel ladies and they're just like, they're tired of waiting and they just don't think it's ever going to happen for you. Like I get it. But you can't let your desperation or your disdain for men or your lack of faith or
Mm,
your experiences dictate, what you do. And right before I met you, actually, I had kind of put the husband off of the list of things I wanted.
mm,
I think I was tired of that being my heart's desire, as strange as that sounds. I was, because actually I had just got a confirmation from God that certain things were going to happen.
yeah.
And that released a lot of pressure off of my heart because, yeah, I mean, I did grieve the possibility that I would never know what it's like to carry a child for 9 months and have my
Mm,
own child, all because I was trying to do things God's way. That was the bizarre thing. Like it's not
mm,
because I couldn't have kids. If I wanted to get knocked up in that second, I could have, but I didn't want that. I don't want my children to be another statistic of fatherlessness. Either I'm going to do it the right way or I wasn't going to do it at all. So
yeah.
that was kind of where I was at. But I was finally at a place where I really was. I was thinking about moving. I was thinking about traveling outside of
Mm,
the country more. I was thinking about leaving. Something was going to change in my
mm-hmm,
life. It just didn't need
mm-hmm,
to be the husband thing anymore because that was really getting on my nerves.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's ironic you say that because the reason why I re-enlisted in the army was because I was like I can't find a wife. That was it's funny that you said that like you if I understood it right, you put that as like I'm assuming like a this may never happen kind of thing in the back of your head and like
40. I didn't.
but but in a sense, like I did the opposite where I'm like, this is like the goal. And if I come across it, like awesome. But I but I'm like, this is still what I want. And it was still there. But it's like, obviously, since I can't get that, I have to go down a level and work with what I've got kind of thing. But I joined the army second time because I was single and I wanted to be married and have a family and serve them. But if I couldn't do that, I mean, the next best thing in my mind was like serving my country, um, and being a leader in the army and blah 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 blah. But
I got me a kid.
um, but ironically, within really just a few months, like I met you, fell in
Yeah.
love with you, and I was like, marry me. And I was like, just, let's do this.
In
And
May.
speaking of your church. I when you said that like your church like really helped you. When I first went there and everybody was very nice, very like high and everything, the way they referred to you, like, oh, like so you're here with Desiree. It was this almost like Wicker Man kind of cult feeling where I'm like, if I do something with Desiree, if I break her heart or something, they're all gonna like just be like, let's put him on a pyre. Let's light a fire and throw him in it. And if he is a man of God, like he'll be protected. Like something weird. Like I just thought like something out of a horror movie. Um,
Of
where you
course.
come to a town and the whole town's gonna try to kill you. Like I thought that was kind of the vibe I got. Like if I screw up here, like it's not gonna end well.
Yeah.
Um, which is kind of funny because like everyone is so sweet, but at the same time, like I know they would be like, get out of here. Especially someone like Blake would be like, get out of here. You're not welcome here. Like I'm a man of God, but like we can't have you here, not while Desert or whatever. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah.
I love
Um,
it. And they fell in love with you pretty quick.
oh no, I was very put off by like how everyone was like very I was very likable and everybody was like very interested in me as yeah, very off-putting for me. I liked it, but it was kind of like this, okay, you can stop now.
Yeah.
It's like compliments. It's like if someone gives me a compliment, I'm like, oh, gee whiz, thank you. But then they're just like, but really, you're so attractive. I'm like, you can stop. Coming
Yeah.
from you, it's obviously different if you're like, you're so handsome. But yeah, but circling back around to our topic, um, withholding, waiting, and appreciating everything.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think I also think like a part of it is also like believing in a plan, like a divine plan, and you know everything happens for a reason, destiny, fate, whatever you want to call it. I think because we both believe that there is more than just coincidence, that there's an element, and not in like a Disney love story fairy tale kind of way where it's like, oh, we're and they lived happily ever after. Like not like that, where it's like, which one of my favorite things about that trope of like, and they lived happily ever after is why do you never learn about what happens after that part in the story? Probably because there is no real happily ever after, because that's not life. And
Yeah.
you can't tell a child that and then go into, and then they started arguing. Like as soon as they moved in together, they started arguing in the castle. Um,
Yeah. That's the fantasy part of it. But
yeah. But I don't know. I think
on that note, sorry.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I know that a lot of people wait till they've been married for like 10, 15 years to do videos like this, but I
Mhm,
actually, and there's value in that for sure, because you've put in the years, you put in the work. But I also think it's interesting because you don't see a lot of like the journey,
mhm,
so we're kind of keeping track of that's not the word I'm looking for, but we're kind of keeping track of the journey,
mhm,
so from the beginning, you know,
mhm,
with where we've come from. Of course, we are older. We would be considered an older couple. So, I mean, we do have experience, but I just
yeah.
think that's why I wanted to do these videos because I do think the journey is just as important as, any perceived destination, even though there really is no destination. Even after been
Mhm,
married for 20 years, you still have work to do and all that.
yeah.
But it comes
Yeah.
waiting, appreciating each other because we are not only just waiting because we're trying to honor God, but we also are like dealing with army distance
Mhm,
and just a lot of things. But we've made it work.
yeah.
We could, skip steps and, run off and meet up in secret places in Texas and all this, but we're choosing not to do all that because I do think it will distance does make the heart grow fonder. And I do think we've waited this long and we want to
Mhm.
honor God. And I think there will be more appreciation. Um, I think,
Well,
once.
and I like that you said distance makes the heart grow fonder because that makes me think of the saying absence makes the heart grow fonder.
Wait,
But in this kind of context, I'd never thought, well, no, I'd never thought of it this way. Like absence in the long term, like what you've lived, how you've lived your life, where like you've abstained from a relationship. And because of that, you're gonna appreciate this more. Because most people, when they hear like absence makes the heart grow fonder, they think of like you're already in a relationship and now you have to like be away from them.
mm-hmm.
Um, which is also a thing that like I really don't like people. I mean, I like people, I like them, but like I don't like people's attitudes when they have to be away from their family. And like me being a military man, it really makes me mad when I hear like people just like advocate for some that like there's some sort of justification like, well, I've been away for so long and blah blah blah, and I'm like, well, if you want to keep talking like that, you need to get out of the military, like, because that's going to keep happening, and you're not special. Everyone's going to go through this. It's just the way it is. I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry. Like
Not special. That might be a shock.
it's yeah, and there's going to be times in life where you're both not going to be in the same place at the same time. You're
Yeah.
both going to be either too busy because you're both like working jobs, or one of you's working all the time and the other one's parenting, or
Mhm.
or whatever it could possibly be.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think and that's another thing too, is I think most people, I think, lose sight of really their relationships and their marriage or whatever, or even sometimes their own children, because they have not they naturally they don't start off with an appreciation for what they have.
Mhm.
Like I would say, and again, this is going to sound really egotistical, but I think I appreciate you more than the average 18-year-old who gets married right out of high school, because I've I've been patiently, as best I can, waiting for you for like over a decade, if not longer. Like, so there's that.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with children. I mean, like, I think for people who
Oh
have
yeah.
difficulty bearing children, when they do have their child, I think they appreciate that child more than
God.
anyone who just has oh, oh, yay, we're pregnant. Okay, cool. And then they have the pregnancy, no complications. They're like, yay. Like,
Yeah. I can.
it's like having a near-death experience. I'm pretty sure people who nearly die probably appreciate being on Earth longer
Yeah. Yeah.
than like other people do.
It'd be intense. I can tear up thinking about it now. Having a child,
Mhm,
finally.
mhm. Yeah, yeah. Um, I mean, it's something I've always wanted. And I've even tried to explain to people, like, and it's mostly, I think, because I think more than the average person, not just man. But I tell people, like, ever since I was about 13, like, I knew that I wanted to be a father. I wasn't ready, but I knew, like, I'm destined to be a father. Like, that was just this. I could see myself as a father. Versus you talk to other people, and it's not until they hit a certain age,
Yeah.
or they are around a friend's child that's just the right time, and they're like, all of a sudden they're like, oh no, and they go home, they're like, make love to me right now because we need to have a child. It's like, oh, okay, like, where's this,
Yeah.
where is this coming from? And then again, that might be a hormonal thing for men and women, because
I think it's both. A lot of the guys that I did date, I mean, I did actually date guys. I wasn't in any long-term relationships, guys. That's what he means by I really wasn't, you know, in relationships because I wasn't like
right.
if
I was only ever in one truly like committed relationship as well. Like I only ever had one girlfriend,
okay.
like,
I mean,
before you. Like, that's, yeah, because I would say I was dating someone, and I really wasn't. It was just like we were just seeing each other. Like,
yeah.
we would like meet up and hang out. That's not really dating. Like, and that's a whole nother conversation. Like, what is
Well,
dating? And
not
I hate the term dating.
yeah, because I mean, for us, we wanted the big thing, which was marriage. And there's so many people that avoid that. But one of the things I think that stood out about you too was just your desire to be a father. That really
Mhm,
touched my heart, knowing that even before you met me, because some guys will say things when they meet me because they're
mhm,
like, I guess I am what they say they want, when they meet a woman like me who's been saving herself, has these certain values, wants to be a mom, all the things, guys will say, oh, there's no women like that.
right,
Psychologically speaking, you're saying
right.
that because you really want to continue to do what you're doing. So you tell yourself there aren't women like that. But when they meet me, it was like, oh, there is, but I'm not really ready for this. But I rarely heard guys talk about being a father. Some of it was because they were already fathers or they became fathers before they wanted to be.
Mhm,
So you're going to appreciate being a father, I think, not just because of your where you're at in your age, but also because you've just wanted it for so long and you notice
mhm,
things that other people take for granted. Just like for me,
mhm.
I don't know what it's like to be a single mama and have all the baby daddies. I don't know what that's like. So I mean
Yeah.
it to me it's something that I certainly can't take for granted, and it's going to be a completely different experience for me.
Right. Well, and like, this is, I just thought of something that, like, I would say a lot of women wouldn't understand because it kind of goes against what people anyone would say about men. But I would say that while men do play into the stereotype of they care a lot about like the way a woman looks more than anything. I mean, that's what most people would say is like, well, it's how she looks, and and if she's like sexually available, that's what most guys look for.
Mhm.
But and this is where like a lot of women I would think would like probably be like, no, that's not a thing, or that's very rare.
Mhm.
Is I would say that being a woman and being very well, how was I going to say that? Well, not just being exclusive, but like there are a lot of times that men will be, oh well, that's what it is. Like men will be attracted to a woman for other reasons other than like physicality. Because I've even talked to a lot of men who like, especially who are my friends, and asked them like, hey, have you ever been friends with a woman that you're not attracted to, like sexually? They're like, yeah. And I'm like, but once you get to know her and you're like getting closer as friends, suddenly you start to be able to see her as a possible mate. They're like, oh yeah, no, that's a thing. Like, but it feels kind of odd. And I'm like, no, no, I get that. But that alone plays into the idea that like it's guys are actually more perceptive than they're even probably aware of. I think men do care a lot about the way a woman thinks and what she's interested in and a lot of stuff like that.
Being
Um,
able to be yourself around her, I do think is
yeah, yeah. Because I mean, I think like one of the biggest things that like people have brought up in recent years that like really, really recent, like the last couple of years that like blows my mind are like there's this I don't know where women get it, but like men can make over 60, like all men make over $60,000 a year. And I'm like, no, the average income of any man is like 30 to 35. So
yeah.
like where they're like, he needs to make six figures. I'm like, well, the man who's making six figures, is he going to pick you? Because that's the thing that like I've always wanted to point out to women is like, why do you think that a man would pick you? Not to say that you're not worthy or you're not just as valuable as any other person, but you have to start thinking from the other person's perspective. Because if you want to be picked by that type, if you want that kind of person, you need to ask yourself, well, am I the kind of person that person would pick? And I don't think that's the kind of thinking that anyone really goes after.
Mhm.
And I think that's why like meeting you was kind of Providence sort of thing because I wouldn't I would say that like at least in my experience, it wasn't until I really believed wholeheartedly anytime I believe something over 100% of the way, like it's a part of me, kind of like a belief that like is a part of me, like I don't even think about it kind of thing. That once that happens, it's like it's like what people call manifesting. Like you just gotta believe it and it'll manifest. And I'm like, well, yeah, but like, how do you know that you're actually believing it? How do you know you are a person of faith that actually believes what they say they believe in? Um,
Feeling.
and I think it's not until you're tested in some
Exactly.
way, shape, or form. But yeah, every time in my life when I was like, I thought I was committed. I thought I was like, yeah, 100%. This is what I want, and this is what I believe. Blah blah. And then I wouldn't get it, and then I would get upset. Um, but I think it was around the time that like whenever I would start, it would become a part of me, and I would believe it with every fiber of my being. Like, nope, it's either this or it's nothing. Like this is who I am. I'm not gonna like basically when I made up my mind, like I'm never gonna date again without the prospect of marriage. Like I'm not gonna have a long-term dating lifestyle. If I pop the question like, hey, do you see us let's start talking about the possibility of marriage. And if they get freaked out by it or something, I'm like, no, I'm just going to be like, well, you clearly don't want it now. And I'm not going to keep this going when there's someone out there who might want it. So like that was my mindset coming into the army. And plus being in the army, I knew that like I didn't have a lot of time to fool around with women to begin with because I have a career that's very demanding of my time. And most women in general, they say they want a man in uniform, and which is hilarious to me because those are also probably the neediest women when it comes to like I need attention and I need time, and
Mhm.
those are not the men. Even tradesmen like are like work like overtime and
Yeah.
stuff in like businesses. I'm like, you don't want that.
Mhm.
And that's another thing. As I say that, the women who say they want a man who makes a lot of money, well, guess how men make a lot of money? By working a lot and not being at home.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you can't have everything. Like you honestly can't.
People spend too much time on social media and
Yeah,
you pick up these ideas that they don't truly think through. Um,
right.
because for me, what I consider high value had nothing to do with how much a man made. I mean, he just had to have be willing and have a plan, I guess, so that I could stay home and homeschool if that's something that we both wanted to do. It needed to be a possibility. So I
Hmm.
couldn't marry someone that would never be able to do that for me. Uh,
Right.
yeah, I knew that that wouldn't work for me, but um, what was important was the worldview, the values, the desire to be a husband and a father, because that's hard enough to find. So I think when I hear high value in the marketplace, I think people are talking usually about the way someone looks and how much money they make. I mean,
Right.
how artificial can you get? What does that have
Right.
to do? Is this man going to stick by you if you like get cancer? Do you think about stuff like that? Or you
Mhm.
just want someone that looks good and has a six pack and
Well, and this is actually a theory that I don't really talk about that often because it sounds very one-sided and possibly patriarchal or sexist
what's
from the manosphere. But I think most women who have this dead set idea that like a man needs to make so much money, like let's just say six figures, hypothetically. Let's say hypothetically, most women say that they want a man to make more than six figures. I think those women, whether they want to admit it or not, they want that amount of money because they know if they can get married to any man like that, no matter what, because of the way the judicial system's rigged against men,
mm,
they will be set for life because
mm,
they'll have at least for a good like 20 years,
mm.
and child support payments, like they won't have to do anything. Like I think that's a lot of it is they're like, well, he has to provide so much for me. And then and I think that's another reason why like those women who also say like the same women, it's like, well, would you settle down for a man who made that much money? They'd be like, oh yeah, I think I could. Again, I think it's because they know that society and the law has their back. So no matter what happens, they've got a high probability that they're going to be taken care of.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think that's also why those same women complain to the level that they do about like I shouldn't have to work and I shouldn't have to like it's just this trend when you kind of compile all of it together. I see it as this attitude of women that it's like, well, I deserve this, which is causing this microcosm that it's causing this like other area to spring up out of nowhere in society where like men are saying the opposite, which is like, well, if that's what women are wanting, I just don't want to have anything to do with that. I think that's where you got like the red pill men going their own
Oh
way
yeah.
groups and stuff. And that's why like I don't really feel I'm very empathetic and sympathetic to like both sides because I get it. Like I think women naturally should be taken care of and should be cared for. Well, because like I can't remember who first explained it or put it in these terms, but when a woman becomes pregnant, she can't really do a lot. So she needs someone to protect her, to take care of her if she's sick, if she's needing food and it's the winter time. Like, how's she going to get food? Like, and of course, I'm talking to hunter-gatherer type scenarios, but
But it's
it
still
would make sense that she wants to be taken care of. Um,
her primal drive. But
right. And like our book that we're reading or I'm reading for us together. I'm reading out loud together. Why Men Behave Badly by David M. Buss. Like
Number two.
we evolve very slowly, and society, but we in a society evolve very slow or very fast. Like society develops very fast, evolves very fast, but our cognitive evolution is very
Right.
slow.
It's
So
still,
we're still holding on to things we developed long time ago, and we can't get rid of them. Like as much as people think that you can with some sort of therapy or raising someone this way, that's not how it works. And we should know that. Like it takes
yeah,
even if you look at people who breed animals like dogs, foxes, cats, it takes like 10 generations before you get the trait you want.
yeah.
And if you
A
think
lot.
about that in human terms, that's like 1,000 years at least.
Ooh, that's
So you probably wouldn't get the result you want until like 1,000 years pass. I would assume a whole another like millennia.
right.
But
This is why they use
and,
social pressure to get people to conform to things, by the way. But they're
yeah,
using
yeah.
certain terms to make people feel like they're, bigots and or they're not this and that, because they're trying to change from generation to generation, but it doesn't really work that way biologically speaking. And to
Hmm.
your point, um, I know that's why women are looking for security. However, we can't ignore the realities of our time. So for 38 years of my life, you know who my protector and provider was God,
Hmm.
essentially. Like, it wasn't what I set out to do. And this is another thing in the trad community, like traditional people,
Hmm.
the red pill, you have the traditionals.
Hmm.
Um, but they always try to really shame women who are in their 30s and childless and still single, as if
Hmm.
that's just, you just take a blank slate of 30-year-olds and you're judging an entire group of women and you don't know the details. There's a lot of us that were waiting for godly husbands long before 2020 came and y'all made traditional arrangements and gender roles popular.
Hmm.
There's those of us like me who's just been out here getting passed by because that wasn't what was popular, right? I'm just like in the window at the store and I'm like, you know, but now
Well,
it's trending and now it's popular. So yeah, that's great. But some women are single and childless because we didn't want to get knocked up or have children outside of wedlock. We're waiting for men to meet us where we were at, which has taken a while.
well,
Apparently.
that's why I used to get very defensive and very angry at anyone who would, I mean, it could be a stranger, it could be someone in my family who would say like, wow, like you're really wonderful. Like it's crazy how you haven't been picked yet. You haven't been, no one's found you. I would get very upset when people would point that out because I didn't ever like that's why I got very cynical and very I still think it's part of my humility that I don't really want people doting on me or like pointing things out about me that are good. I'd much rather people point out my flaws, which sounds really counter to people are like that's a really unhealthy mindset. I'm like, well, the reason why I care more about my flaws than my than anything is because if I know my flaws, I can work on them or I can't, or I know, okay, I'm bad in this area. So, and I've developed it as hard as I can. So I can go over here and work on something else or whatever. But I, I just look at, I would look at those people who would say like, oh, why haven't you been found yet? And I would just get really upset. And I would say like, don't say that. Like, don't tell me like that I'm great and that I'm an awesome person, blah, blah, blah. Because and in the and it was that was mostly me just voicing how I felt. Like, I don't want to hear it. Like, while that may be true, I don't want to hear it. And when people would be like, well, why are you so upset? That's when I would lead in with the um the justified, response of if I'm so great, why am I alone? Like if I would be such a great husband, why am I single? If I would be a great father, why don't I have kids? And I would throw my arms up like this and be like, you tell me. And then they'd be like, well, you just haven't met him. I'm like, I just haven't met him yet. Like that's what everybody would say to me. It's like, you just haven't met him yet. I'm like, no, duh. Like Like, thank you for pointing out the obvious. That's like saying like, well, why is the ground wet? Because it rained yesterday. It's like,
Well,
oh, that's why it's like that. That's why it is the way it is. It's like, why is it so hot here? Because you're on the equator in South America. Like,
that,
oh, that's why. Like it was just really, really ridiculous. But
yeah.
anyway.
And that's true for I think for both men and women that you can't look at any guy and make certain assumptions. I mean, I know that I did. If there was a man in his 40s who was never married, didn't have kids, I used to consider that to be okay, you're single because you want to be single and this is probably a thing, but that's not necessarily true. You don't know a person's story and you can't I think especially on social media, but I guess really in the media in general, we make way too many generalizations for the sake of making a point. And I could call out people even on Instagram that I appreciate a lot of their ideas, but again, um is really your average 30-year-old woman who's childless, did she like
Mhm,
choose a career over a proposal? Was there some dude over here with his knees on his knees saying, marry me? And then this was Boston College, and they just said, man, I'm going to go for Boston College. Sorry, dude. Like, no, no woman on the planet. I mean, there might be one or two, but
mhm,
there is no one that actually, it's not like we literally chose a career over marriage, people. It's just that
right.
it was not available to us. So what else are we supposed to do? My parents are not rich. They don't live in the Hamptons. They can't, they could support me if they probably would have because they love me, but I wanted to help my parents financially because I
Mhm,
saw how much they sacrificed for me. So, um, anyway, I did choose to be able to supply my own needs. And I feel like God opened doors for me educationally and with jobs. And I'm very, very grateful for that.
mhm,
But I think that women who feel entitled for some reason or want the easy life, you want welfare without welfare. So you think marrying a rich guy is a way to get that. A lot of those women are going to remain single.
mhm,
You can live in that six-pack, six-figure fantasy. Go ahead. The rest of us are gonna get are gonna get married. Because I that was not important to me.
mhm.
So many other things I can think of that are much more important. Um, you know, so
Well, the other thing too is a lot of people like to, because nowadays it's very rare to find anyone who's been barely, well, yeah, barely used, if you want to go down that road. Because when I say things like that, I'm thinking in like wear and tear, like on a vehicle or a tool or any kind of
Mhm.
thing that wears out the more you use it, um, whether it's a machine or whatever, an object. But I think like because most people are not very selective and they're not chaste or um like we were saying withholding and
Yeah.
in their younger years that
Mhm.
there's this narrative that like being a virgin isn't a great thing. Like it's not, it's why would every guy say that he wants a virgin? I'm like, well, I mean, I most things that are brand new or never been used are more valuable than the ones that have been used. I don't care if it's a car, I don't care if it's a gun, if it's a house. If you say this house has never been lived in and it is pristine and it's been sit and so like there's things like that. One owner cars, like things like that. So if you can apply it to literally anything, and you're probably going to perceive it as more valuable. And the fewer there are of those things, the more rare they are. So the value keeps going up. So it's really interesting to me that people just push the narrative of, well, this doesn't matter
Of course. I mean,
anymore. And
when you say that virginity is a social construct and all of that, you're an idiot. I just have to say it. I mean, I know that there's a lot of pressure, purity culture. I'm not a fan of it. I'm not saying that you need to think you're less than if you're not a virgin. The idea is having a small body count. That is actually a thing. Not just for some future man you'll marry, but your actual mental health. your emotional wellness, because we're not built to have multiple partners. This is, again, biological, psychological facts. We can pretend that we live in a world where those things don't matter. And then you're probably in therapy a lot. But if we accept that this is the way we're built, then you know that the more, like that word that you use, which I never really saw it used in that context, exclusivity. You know,
Mm-hmm.
people think about that in relationships, but you want a woman who's exclusive. That's,
Mm-hmm.
that's so good, baby.
Mm-hmm.
Because you
Well,
think about anything like a diamond or anything expensive is also exclusive.
for
You
the
know,
people out there who advocate for human beings are not meant to be monogamous, and in that whole
trope.
line of thinking,
Mhm.
if anyone wants to argue that, I will counter argue. Like, I'll meet you halfway and be like, no, you've got a point. And then I'll be like, but that also means that you need to have males fighting each other for dominance of all the women so they can have more sexual access to more women. And you get into this very barbaric, very patriarchal world that doesn't make any sense. But
Mhm.
if you don't go that down that road and you say you get one woman or one man, one partner, that's it. That leaves the dating, courting, marital, spousal marketplace open for everyone else.
Mhm.
And that alone, like no one understands that. Like, because if you only have one man who's taking all the women, then you have a bunch of men who are going to be sexually frustrated. They're that anyway, and that's one of those things that like it's very stupid to me for people to think that monogamy isn't a good thing. Like you
Right.
can debate like should we have it or not, and but you can't say that like monogamy's bad. Like I can't understand that. Anyone who's like monogamy's bad, I'm like
Yeah.
explain like explain the evils of monogamy.
Yeah.
Um,
And one
but
of the last things I'll say is I think a lot of people will settle for all this progressive BS. They settle for it like, oh, we're gonna make it work. You know, you can make
oh
monogamy
yeah, it's
work.
like a social communist country. It's like we'll make it work. I'm like,
But there's some things that are good and there's some things that are better and there's what is best. And
mm-hmm.
I think that human beings have figured that out already for thousands of years now. So,
So, one other thing to add to that, if polyamory were, say, we were wired for it, right? Because that's kind of what they're saying is like, well, no, we're not meant to be monogamous. We're meant to be polyamorous. Okay, well, if that's the case, and it's becoming more socially acceptable now, like you're not shunned and kicked out of like the town on a, you know, uh, a telephone pole, tarred and feathered for stuff like that. It's like, okay, it's being more widely accepted as that's their lifestyle. Um, if that's the case, why aren't more people moving to that?
mhm.
And why isn't it, why do most people end up like being unhappy? Because that lifestyle doesn't really, it has a lot of bumps in it. Not say it's not fun. It's like driving really fast and then you hit a bump and then you fly off the road. Like
Yeah.
it's not the safest way, and it's not the most practical way to go about getting what you want. Um, but yeah, I that's the it's like any argument. Like just show me anywhere where it works. It's like the societal push for um gender dysphoria being normal. Like I don't know how else to say that. And that it's not a mental condition.
Yeah. Trying to normalize.
It's one of those things where I'm like, oh, okay, show me where it worked. Show me where it was a good thing. Like across the board, like there's no nothing negative coming out of it. And
Right.
that's when most people look at you and be like, well, there's nothing where like there's no negativity. And I'm like, really? Like there's not really? You can't say like, I don't know, eating like homegrown food and wild game isn't healthier than anything that we eat now. Like it's that sort of thing where I'm like, I'm pretty sure you're gonna find like less health problems. And it's like their doctor's gonna be like, no, 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 I don't know what you're doing, but keep doing it. As opposed to like other things. But
Yeah.
um
I don't think it's a coincidence that people are more impulsive. People are, we're having problems with obesity. We definitely live in an era where people think that if I do every little thing that I want to do, somehow I'm going to be happier. And that's not the case. I can say that as a psychotherapist that, a lot of people who are satisfying all of their sexual lusts are still not happy. And I think that that's the disconnect. I don't think it's a coincidence that we live in such a time where, oh, we want to do whatever we want to do. And there's also a rise in polyamory. Did I say it right? And
polyamory. It's
polyamory.
close enough. I mean, like, yeah, that's the
Like
word.
polyamory. That sounds like an armory of polys. Um, and an increase in other things where it's about gratification.
Hmm.
Looking at this on a larger scale, I just think there's no coincidence that, we're trying to find alternative routes to happiness, even the rise in use of narcotics, marijuana. None of this is a coincidence, people. We are a people out of control because,
Hmm.
we're searching for happiness in the wrong places. There's a general dissatisfaction that can only be found in, I think, as a Christian in Jesus
Hmm.
Christ. Just like I had to find peace, even desiring something good. There's nothing wrong with desiring a husband and children, but even I had to let go of that rightful desire. Um,
Hmm.
and if I could do that over something that's righteous, how much more should we do it over things that are unrighteous? So I'm
Hmm.
going to stop talking though, because it's probably been an hour. How long have we been
No,
talking?
it probably has.
Good chats as always.
Hmm.
I'm going to end it here. Follow us for more content. I'm going to put all of Mr. Samuel's YouTubes below, all his channels, maybe other social media outlets as he's ready, and all of mine. We're not sure when all this is coming out, but we're just doing this
Hmm.
for posterity. Thank you
Yeah.
guys for listening, watching. We love you.